The rain poured like shattered glass against the cold streets of Denver. Under a flickering streetlight sat Ethan Cole, wrapped in a torn army jacket that had seen better days, much like him. His fingers trembled as he counted the last few coins in his palm. 840 cents. That was all he had left in the world. For 3 years, Ethan had called this stretch of sidewalk his home, a slab of concrete beneath. The old bridge, a cardboard sign reading, "Just trying to make it through one more night." He had once been a mechanic, the kind who could bring engines back to life. But after losing his wife and job in the same cruel month, he had stopped fixing things, especially himself. That night, he sat beside a steaming cup of cheap coffee, trying to soak up its fading warmth, when the distant roar of motorcycle engines cut through the storm. A group of bikers thundered past, their headlights slicing through the mist like fire. They looked wild, black leather, tattoos, and patches that glowed under the rain. Hell's Angels. Most people would look away. Ethan didn't. He saw one of the bikes skid near the curb, the rider slamming hard into the wet asphalt. The others didn't notice. They were already gone. Swallowed by the darkness and the storm, Ethan ran, barefoot through the puddles, his heart pounding harder than the thunder. The biker groaned, trying to lift the heavy motorcycle pinning his leg, but couldn't. Ethan dropped his coffee and rushed in, pushing with everything left in him. Together they heaved the bike off. The man's hand was bleeding, his face pale beneath the helmet. "Man, you okay?" Ethan shouted over the rain. The biker nodded weakly, clutching his side. His gas tank had split open, dripping fuel. The man's lips trembled. "Need gas station. Can't make it." Ethan didn't think. He grabbed his last crumpled $8 and shoved it into the man's hand. "Go," he said, "before it runs dry." The biker's eyes widened. "You serious?" Ethan just smiled. A tired, broken smile. "Money's just paper. You got wheels and you got a chance." The biker hesitated, then revved the engine and disappeared into the storm. Ethan stood there, soaked and shivering, watching the taillight vanish into the night, taking with it the last piece of security he had left. He turned back toward the bridge, empty-handed but strangely light inside. For the first time in years, he'd done something that felt right. He didn't know that by dawn, his name would be on the lips of every biker in the city, and that the road he'd chosen would soon lead 300 roaring engines straight to his doorstep. Ethan woke to the sound of thunder again, but this time it wasn't from the sky. It was from the ground. A low, distant rumble grew heavier by the second, echoing beneath the bridge like the growl of a waking beast. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was still dreaming, but then he saw it. A line of motorcycles, one after another, their headlights cutting through the gray morning fog. Not one, not 10, hundreds. The roar grew deafening as they rolled closer, their engines synchronized in perfect chaos. People stopped on the sidewalks, staring in disbelief. The line of bikes stretched for blocks, chrome glinting in the dull light. And in the middle of it all stood the man from last night, the biker Ethan had helped. Ethan froze. His first thought was fear. Had he done something wrong? The Hells Angels were not known for random acts of kindness. The biker, tall, broad, with a scar cutting across his cheek, swung off his Harley and walked straight toward Ethan, his boots splashed through puddles, his leather jacket dripping with rain. Behind him, the entire crew shut off their engines. The silence that followed was almost holy. "You're the guy," the biker said, voice gravelly. "The one who gave me his last few bucks." Ethan swallowed. "Yeah, you made it home all right?" The biker's lip curved into a half smile. "Yeah, name's Ryder. You saved my life out there." Ethan shook his head. "Didn't save nobody. Just helped a guy on the road." Ryder turned, motioning to the rows of bikes behind him. "These are my brothers. Word travels fast among us. You gave when you had nothing, so now it's our turn." Before Ethan could respond, 2 bikers stepped forward carrying a box. They set it at his feet and opened it. Inside were bundles of groceries, a pair of new boots, and a thick leather jacket with a red and white patch stitched on the sleeve, the symbol of the Angels. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "I can't take this." Ryder smirked. "You already did. This is family now. We take care of our own." The crowd of bikers erupted in applause, engines revving, fists in the air. The sound shook the entire street. Ethan felt his knees weaken. For years, no one had seen him. No one had cared. And now, standing before hundreds of roaring engines, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. Tears mixed with the rain as Ryder clapped him on the shoulder. "You helped one of us," he said. "Now 300 of us are here to help you." The noise rose again. Engines howling like thunder, as Ethan stood among them, still half believing it was a dream. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The bikers weren't just there to thank him. They were about to change his life forever. The smell of gasoline and leather filled the air as the Hells Angels circled around Ethan's corner of the bridge. The noise faded into a hum, replaced by laughter, chatter, and the sound of boots crunching on wet gravel. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't invisible. He was surrounded and by people who, at a glance, looked rough, dangerous even, yet their eyes held something he hadn't seen in so long. Respect. Ryder leaned against his Harley, lighting a cigarette. "You live here?" he asked, glancing at Ethan's makeshift camp, a pile of cardboard, an old blanket, and a rusted tin cup. Ethan nodded slowly. 3 years now. I move sometimes, but yeah, this is home. Ryder took a long drag, then flicked the cigarette to the ground. Not anymore. Before Ethan could ask, Ryder whistled sharply. A group of bikers pulled up a van from the convoy. Inside were construction tools, wooden planks, paint buckets, and supplies. Ethan's eyes widened. "What is all this?" Ryder grinned. "Your new start." They got to work. Right there under the bridge. Some bikers built a small wooden cabin. Others cleaned the area, while a few brought food from a nearby diner. Within hours, the cold gray spot Ethan had called home began to transform. One biker, a big guy named Tank, handed Ethan a warm sandwich. "Ryder told us what you did," he said. "Most people would have walked by. You didn't. Respect, brother." Ethan looked down, overwhelmed. "You guys don't even know me." Tank chuckled. "Doesn't matter. One good heart's worth more than 1,000 fake smiles." By sunset, a small shack stood tall, sturdy walls, a door, even a mattress inside. It wasn't much, but to Ethan it was a palace. Ryder stood beside him, watching as the bikers packed up. "You still think it was just 8? He asked softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "It was all I had." Ryder nodded. "That's what makes it priceless." As the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the clouds in orange and gold, Ethan sat on the steps of his new shelter. The bikers were laughing nearby, the sound of engines idling like a lullaby. For the first time in years, he didn't dread the night. Then Ryder's phone buzzed. He stepped aside, answering quietly. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he caught one. "Hospital." Ryder's expression darkened. He ended the call and turned back, forcing a smile. "Hey, we'll see you tomorrow, brother. Got something to take care of tonight." Ethan nodded, unaware that Ryder was hiding something. Something that would soon reveal why this moment meant more to him than Ethan could ever imagine. As the bikers rode off into the twilight, the sound of engines echoing against the city walls, Ethan whispered to himself, "Maybe I was never really forgotten." He didn't know that tomorrow would bring a truth that would shake him to his core and prove that his $8 had done far more than save a life. The following morning broke crisp and clear, sunlight spilling across the cracked pavement beneath the bridge. For the first time in months, Ethan woke not to cold wind, but to warmth, the scent of wood, the hum of the city, and a faint memory of laughter echoing in his ears. He stepped outside, blinking at the brightness. The small cabin the bikers had built stood proud, solid, almost unreal. A small cardboard sign now hung on the door, scrawled in black marker. "Home, built by brothers." Ethan smiled. He hadn't smiled like that in years. Then he heard the familiar growl of a single motorcycle. He turned and saw Ryder's Harley pull up, dust kicking behind it. But today, Ryder wasn't wearing his usual half-smirk. His face was tight, jaw clenched, eyes darker than before. "You all right?" Ethan asked, stepping closer. Ryder took off his helmet, exhaling hard. "Yeah, just came from the hospital." Ethan frowned. "Something wrong?" Ryder hesitated, then nodded slowly. "My daughter. She's been sick for a while. Needed surgery." Ethan's heart sank. "Is she okay?" "She is now," Ryder said softly. "The night you found me, I was rushing to get to her. My bike broke down, and I thought I wouldn't make it. If you hadn't given me that gas money," he looked up, his voice cracking slightly, "I wouldn't have gotten there in time. The doctor said 5 more minutes and she would have been gone." Ethan stood frozen. The rain, the road, the $8, it all replayed in his mind like a film reel. He had thought he was helping a stranger. He never knew he'd saved a life. Ryder continued, eyes glistening. "That's why I brought them here yesterday. Not to repay a debt, but to show you what you gave us. A future." Ethan tried to speak, but the words got caught in his throat. His vision blurred. He turned away, wiping his eyes. "Man, I don't know what to say." Ryder put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't say anything. Just know, you're not alone anymore. For a long moment, neither spoke. The world around them fell silent, just the distant murmur of engines, and the whisper of the wind through the bridge. Pillars, finally. Ryder took something from his jacket. A small photo of a little girl smiling. Her head wrapped in a pink bandana. Her name's Lena. She asked me to give you this. On the back of the photo, written in a child's shaky handwriting, were 4 words. "Thank you, Angel Man." Ethan's breath hitched. He pressed the photo to his chest. For the first time in years, he felt tears that didn't come from pain, but from purpose. Ryder smiled faintly. "You saved her, brother. Now it's our turn to save you." He looked toward the horizon where a convoy of bikers was gathering. Again, engines revving, flags waving. "Tomorrow," Ryder said, mounting his Harley, "we ride. For you." As the engine roared to life, Ethan stood frozen, clutching the photo. The morning sun hit his face, and for the first time since his life had fallen apart, he whispered, "Maybe God never left me. He just sent angels on wheels." By noon the next day, the city trembled. The low growl of hundreds of motorcycles echoed through downtown. Denver like thunder rolling across a steel sky. Windows shook, birds scattered, and people poured onto sidewalks, staring as a sea of chrome and leather filled the streets. Over 300 Hells Angels, engines roaring in unison. At the front of the convoy rode Ryder, the wind tearing through his hair. Behind him, flying proudly on the back of a Harley, was a massive black and red banner that read, "Ride for Ethan Cole." The sight stopped traffic. Reporters ran out with cameras. Children pointed and cheered as the bikers thundered past. The city had never seen anything like it. Back under the bridge, Ethan heard the sound before he saw them. His heart pounded as the noise grew louder. Hundreds of engines, one heartbeat. When the first line of bikes appeared, his jaw fell open. "Dear God," he whispered. Ryder pulled up first, cutting the engine. One by one, the bikers followed, forming a perfect circle around Ethan's little home. The air shimmered with heat and noise. Ryder took off his helmet, climbed onto his bike's seat, and shouted above the roar, "Brothers, this man right here," he pointed toward Ethan, gave his last $8 to a stranger on a stormy night. Didn't ask who he was, didn't ask what he rode, he just gave. The crowd erupted. Whistles, cheers, fists pounding the air. Ryder continued, his voice rough with emotion. "That $8 saved my little girl's life. And because of him, she's alive today. So today we ride for him." The roar that followed shook the ground. Every biker revved their engine in salute. A wave of sound that felt like thunder rolling through Ethan's chest. Ethan stood frozen, tears welling in his eyes. "You don't have to do this," he shouted over the noise. Ryder smiled down at him. "We don't have to. We want to." He handed Ethan a pair of sunglasses and a black leather jacket, one that matched the rest of the crew. The patch on the back read, "Angels Ride with Honor." Ethan's hands trembled as he slipped it on. It fit perfectly, like it had always been meant for him. Then Ryder reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small envelope. "We all chipped in," he said quietly. "You gave everything you had, so now it's our turn." Ethan opened it and froze. Inside was a check for $25,000. His breath caught. I can't accept this." Ryder shook his head. "You already did. This isn't charity, brother. It's gratitude." The crowd cheered again, louder than before. Cameras flashed. But in that moment, Ethan didn't see the money, the fame, or the hundreds of faces watching. He saw Ryder's daughter, Lena, smiling in that photo. He looked up, eyes glistening. "You saved me too," he whispered. Ryder smirked. "Nah, you just needed a tune-up." Laughter broke through the roar as Ryder revved his bike. "Mount up, brother. We're taking you home." Ethan hesitated. "Home?" Ryder pointed north. "You'll see." And with that, 300 engines roared to life again, shaking the earth as Ethan climbed onto the back of Ryder's Harley. The convoy began to move, stretching down the road like a river of thunder and chrome. Ethan held on tight as the wind whipped through his hair. For the first time in years, he felt alive, free. He didn't know it yet, but the ride wasn't just about celebration. It was about redemption, and the road ahead would lead him somewhere he never thought he'd belong again. The road stretched for miles in a silver ribbon cutting through the heart of the Colorado Plains. The convoy of 300 bikers thundered down the highway like a living storm, chrome flashing in the sunlight, leather jackets fluttering in the wind. Cars pulled over to the shoulder, drivers staring, some filming, others simply watching in awe. Ethan sat behind Ryder, holding tight, the wind stinging, his face but filling his lungs with something he hadn't felt in years, hope. Every roar of the engines felt like a heartbeat, every gust of air like a breath of new life. After nearly an hour on the road, Ryder slowed. The rest of the bikers followed, forming a long, synchronized line as they turned onto a gravel path leading toward the edge of town. Ethan looked around. "Where are we going?" Ryder just smiled beneath his helmet. "You'll see." They pulled into an old, fenced-off lot, overgrown grass, a small workshop with broken windows, a faded sign barely hanging on its hinges. Cole & Son Auto Repair. Ethan froze. His breath hitched. It was his old garage, the one he'd built. With his father years ago before, everything fell apart. He hadn't been back since the bank took it. He stumbled off the bike, his boots crunching on gravel. "Ryder, how did you—" Ryder took off his helmet, eyes warm. "We found it. Still listed under your name. The owner was about to sell it to a junkyard company. So, we bought it." Ethan blinked, lost for words. "You, what?" Ryder grinned. "You said you used to be a mechanic, right? Time to get your hands dirty again, brother." Ethan walked toward the building, his fingers brushing the chipped paint of the old sign. Cole & Son, his father's legacy. His life before the fall. Memories flooded in. His dad's laughter. The smell of oil and rubber. His wife bringing lunch on hot summer days. He turned to Ryder, tears burning in his eyes. "You did all that for me?" Ryder shrugged. "You gave your last $8 to save a stranger's kid. We just gave a little back." Behind them, dozens of bikers were already unloading supplies, cleaning tools, boxes of parts, cans of paint. Within minutes, the place was buzzing with life again. Tank, the big biker from before, shouted, "Yo, boss! Where you want this compressor?" Ethan laughed, a full, hearty laugh that startled even himself. "Right where it used to be, brother." The men cheered. Music started playing from one of the bikes. Someone fired up a grill, the smell of gasoline mixed with barbecue and joy. Ryder stood beside Ethan, watching him soak it all in. "You know," he said, "you reminded me that brotherhood doesn't come from colors or clubs. It comes from heart." Ethan nodded slowly, voice trembling. "I thought my life ended here. Turns out, it was just waiting for me to come home." As the sun began to set, golden light spilling across the newly painted sign, Ethan picked up a wrench, his first in years, and whispered, "Let's bring her back to life." The bikers erupted in cheers, engines roaring in salute. For the first time in a long, long while, Ethan felt it. Belonging. But as night fell and the laughter echoed through the yard, Ryder's phone buzzed again. He looked at the screen, and his smile faded. Ethan noticed. "Everything okay?" Ryder pocketed the phone, forcing a grin. "Yeah, just family stuff." But deep down he knew it wasn't okay. Something was coming, and then soon. Ethan's act of kindness would demand a price neither of them expected. The days that followed felt like a dream. For the first time in years, Ethan had purpose again. His hands, once cracked and idle, were now alive with motion, grease-stained and steady as he tightened bolts, cleaned engines, and taught younger bikers how to rebuild what was broken. The old sign Cole & Son Auto Repair shone once more, freshly painted in red and white. The shop buzzed with laughter, the smell of oil and coffee filling the air. Every morning, a few bikers stopped by just to lend a hand, drop off supplies or share breakfast with Ethan. But Ryder, the man who started it all, had been acting different. He smiled less, talked less. He'd show up late, sometimes not at all. When he was there, he seemed distracted, a man carrying a storm inside. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Ethan found Ryder sitting behind the shop staring at his phone. "You've been quiet," Ethan said softly, sitting beside him. Ryder nodded, still looking at the screen. "Yeah, just trying to figure things out." Ethan tilted his head. "Hospital again?" Ryder sighed. "Yeah, Lena's not doing so good. The doctors said the surgery helped for a while, but now they found something else. It's spreading fast." Ethan's chest tightened. "God, I'm sorry, Ryder." Ryder rubbed his eyes. "I thought we were in the clear, you know? I thought she was safe, but now, the treatment costs are way higher than before. Insurance won't cover it." Ethan reached into his pocket, pulling out the envelope of money the bikers had given him. "Take it," he said firmly. "Every penny." Ryder looked up sharply. "No, absolutely not." "Ryder, listen." Ryder stood, voice raised. "You've already lost everything once. You just got your life back, man. You're not giving it away again." Ethan rose too, meeting his eyes. "You said it yourself. Brotherhood comes from the heart. You'd do the same for me." For a long moment, they just stood there in the fading light, the sound of cicadas filling the silence. Then Ryder's shoulders slumped. "You don't understand," he muttered. "It's not just about money. I promised Lena I'd make sure she never sees me fall apart again. I can't break that." Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. Then don't. You're not alone this time. That night, when Ryder finally left, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the dusty floor of his shop. The words, "Thank you, Angel Man," echoed in his mind. He stood, walked to the workbench, and pulled open the drawer, where he'd kept that little photo of Lena. He stared at her smile, her tiny handwriting, and then, without hesitation, he picked up the phone. "Tank, it's Ethan," he said. "Call the guys. We've got a little girl to save." The next morning, hundreds of engines would roar again. Not for celebration this time, but for love. Dawn broke over Denver like fire on the horizon. The sky burned orange and red, and the sound that followed wasn't birdsong. It was thunder. 300 bikers gathered once more outside Cole & Son Auto Repair. The air was thick with tension and purpose. They weren't there for a party. They weren't there for glory. They were there to save a child. Ethan stood at the front, leather jacket zipped, his hand steady on the handlebars of Ryder's spare Harley. His eyes were tired but determined. For the first time, he wasn't the one being helped. He was leading the ride. Tank rode up beside him. "You sure about this, brother? We raised that much money. It'll take time, and the press is going to be all over us." Ethan nodded. "Let them be. The world needs to see what love looks like when it's loud." The engines roared to life, a wave of power that shook the pavement. They rode out in formation, flags fluttering in the wind, banners reading, "Ride for Lena, one child, one brotherhood." The convoy swept through the city, the sound of hundreds of bikes echoing off skyscrapers. People stopped in their tracks. Some clapped, some cried, and many reached for their phones, filming the unbelievable sight, bikers riding for a dying child. Ethan led from the front, his face calm but his heart pounding. Every mile felt like a prayer. Every rev of the engine carried a message. We don't leave our own behind. By noon, the ride ended at a massive community park. A stage had been set up, news crews waiting, crowds gathered. On the banners behind the stage were two faces: Ryder's little girl, Lena, smiling, and Ethan, the homeless man who had once given his last $8. When Ethan stepped up to the microphone, the noise of the engines faded. The crowd went silent. He took a breath, voice trembling but strong. 3 years ago, I lost everything: my home, my family, my hope. I thought the world had forgotten me. But one night, I helped a stranger in the rain. And that stranger gave me a family. He looked out at the sea of bikers, their eyes glistening behind dark shades. We ride today for a little girl who reminds us that kindness is never wasted. You don't need money to change a life, you just need a heart. The crowd erupted in applause. People began walking forward, some dropping cash, others swiping cards, many just hugging the bikers. Within hours, donations poured in. News stations broadcasted it live. By evening, the total flashed across a massive digital board. $238,000 raised. Ryder, standing in the crowd with tears streaming down his face, couldn't believe it. His brothers had done the impossible, led by the very man he once called a stranger. Ethan stepped down from the stage and walked straight to him. Without a word, he handed Ryder the check. "Go save your little girl," he said softly. Ryder's voice cracked. "I don't deserve this." Ethan smiled faintly. "Neither did I, but grace doesn't wait for permission." The two men embraced, the crowd around them cheering, engines roaring once more. But for Ethan, the sound wasn't noise anymore. It was life itself. That night, as the city lights shimmered across the skyline, Ethan sat outside his shop watching the stars. For the first time since his wife died, he whispered a prayer, not for himself but for Lena. "Please," he said to the sky, "let her see another sunrise." 2 weeks later, the world had changed. The ride for Lena had gone viral. News channels, social media, radio stations. Everyone was talking about the homeless man who gave his last $8, and the army of bikers who roared back to repay him with kindness. Donations poured in from across the country. Messages of love and faith flooded in. But for Ethan, fame meant little. What mattered was the little girl lying in a hospital bed. Ryder's daughter, Lena. Every day he visited, he'd bring small toy cars, flowers, or just sit quietly beside her bed. Her smile never faded, even as her body grew weaker. "When I get better," she whispered one day, "I'm gonna ride a bike too." "Just like Daddy," Ethan chuckled softly. "You'll ride the fastest one, sweetheart." She grinned. "Maybe you'll ride with me." That night, Ethan stood in the hallway, watching Ryder through the glass window. The big, tough biker had his head bowed beside the hospital bed, holding his daughter's tiny hand. His leather jacket hung on the chair, his heart laid bare. Days passed. The doctors did everything they could. Some nights were good, some were unbearable. And then, One morning, the phone rang at Ethan's shop. It was Ryder. His voice was breaking. "She's gone, brother." Ethan's world froze. The wrench in his hand slipped and clattered to the floor. The noise of the shop faded away, until all that was left was silence. The kind that eats through your chest. That afternoon, hundreds gathered at a small country church. The sound of motorcycles filled the air again. Not roaring this time, but soft, engines humming in respect. A single white Harley led the procession, Lena's pink helmet resting on the seat. Ethan stood beside Ryder, both dressed in black leather. No words were spoken. They didn't need any. When the service ended, Ryder handed Ethan a small envelope. His hands trembled. "She wanted you to have this." Ethan unfolded it slowly. Inside was a letter written in a child's handwriting, uneven and sweet. "Dear Angel Man, thank you for helping my daddy when he fell. I think you are my hero. When I see the sky, I'll wave at you from my bike. Love, Lena." The words hit him like thunder. His knees nearly gave out. Ryder caught him, pulling him into a tight hug. Both men wept openly, the kind of tears that come not from pain, but from love too big to contain. After a long silence, Ryder whispered, "She called you Angel Man right till the end." Ethan wiped his face, looking toward the sky where the clouds drifted like smoke. Maybe she's right where angels belong now. That night, as the sun sank below the horizon, the bikers lit candles around Ethan's shop. Hundreds of flames flickered in the dark, glowing against the chrome and steel of their bikes. Ryder placed Lena's pink helmet on the workbench, right beneath the sign that read Cole & Son Auto Repair. "She's part of the family now," he said softly. Ethan nodded, whispering, "Always." And as the engines hummed low into the night, the sound felt different. Not noise, not thunder, but something holy. Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and the town began to change. Not just the streets, but the people. Where once there had been whispers and pity, for that homeless man there was now respect. Ethan wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He had become a symbol. A reminder that one small act of kindness could ignite 1,000 hearts. The auto shop thrived, not because of money, but because it had become something sacred. Every week, bikers stopped by to help repair cars for free. Every month, a portion of the shop's income went to a fund called Lena's Ride, helping sick children across the state. A mural covered the outer wall of the shop. A little girl on a pink motorcycle, smiling at the sky with the words, "Be someone's angel." Ethan never took credit. He always said, "I just gave a man a meal. God did the rest." Ryder stayed by his side through it all. He wore a chain with Lena's helmet charm around his neck and kept her photo in his jacket. He still rode, but now every ride had purpose. One warm afternoon, as Ethan closed up the shop, a young boy approached him, maybe 10 years old, thin with dirt on his cheeks. He held out a crumpled dollar. "Mister, can you fix my bike? The chain's stuck." Ethan smiled. "Of course." As he worked, he asked gently, "Where's your folks, kid?" The boy shrugged. "Just me and Mom. She's sick, so I take care of her." Something inside Ethan tightened. The same ache he'd felt years ago when he first fell into the streets. He knelt and fixed the chain, then looked the boy in the eye. "Tell you what," Ethan said. "You keep your dollar. I've got something better for you." He wheeled out a small, shiny red bike from the corner, one that the bikers had repaired last week. "She's yours," Ethan said. The boy's eyes went wide. "Really?" Ethan nodded. "Really. Just promise me one thing. Help someone else someday when they need it." The boy grinned and hugged him before racing off down the road, his laughter echoing in the warm air. Ethan watched him go, a slow smile spreading across his weathered face. He turned his gaze upward, to the fading sunlight where a single cloud drifted across the sky, shaped almost like a pair of wings. He whispered, "I see you, Lena." Behind him, the rumble of engines began again. Dozens of bikes rolling into town, leather and chrome gleaming in the setting sun. The Hells Angels, still loyal, still proud, still family. Ryder approached holding 2 helmets. "You ready, brother?" Ethan took one, smiling. "Always." They mounted their bikes and roared off down the open highway, wind whipping through their hair, the horizon burning gold ahead of them. And as they rode, the world seemed to whisper around them. A man once gave his last $8 and gained 1,000 souls in return.